Hi everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of my TAG1 any% restricted tutorial, where we finally make it to the Holt. This level will be separated into two parts, first tackling everything until this bridge, and the next going over the rest of the level. Before I start showing you how Holt is done, a quick disclaimer. This video is so late compared to the others because a few route changes, script rewrites, and a grind delayed this one a bit. Sorry for taking as long as I did, but now we can begin. From a new and intermediate runner perspective, Holt might be the hardest part of the run, it being a gauntlet of skips and tricks that are as difficult as they are consistent. When you're practicing this level, pay attention to your execution and feel free to use the backup strategies, as almost every skip in this level has an alternate version for you to try. The very first room already gives us a great example of this. It starts off with a cutscene that we can skip immediately, and from here let me show you the easier route first. The only notable thing about the sequence is that we swap mods to force the game to pull up our gun earlier before performing the rest of it. Touching that wall up there gives us a checkpoint, which we reload to skip this fight and end up on the other side of the invis wall. When you do the weapon wheel dash boost, make sure you hold the wheel until you see the Slayer touch the slope, then release and dash. The harder strat looks like this. Instead of dashing forwards at the start, we dash diagonally to the left and then start jumping to trigger a wall dash. Use that momentum with Ballista to go to the tree faster, and instead of dashing, you don't do anything. If you have enough speed coming into this slope, you'll simply trimp upwards, trimp being the term used to describe your horizontal speed being transferred to vertical speed. It's possible with much less speed, but it's a bit harder than the dash boost because it requires good positioning on the slope. Even if you try the trimp and find it consistent like me, get used to the dash boost so you know what to do in case it fails. Maybe it's low height, maybe you bumped into the slope incorrectly or didn't get enough speed to make it there in the first place. The dash boost is a valuable backup regardless. Also, here's how it looks with that speed. Now that you're on the other side of the invis wall, we continue the trend of branching paths with 3 different variations for the next skip. Here's the first one. This one is the easiest out of the bunch. We start with a Ballista boost to the lower floor, making sure we go to the side of this little hallway rather than the middle to avoid fodder potentially blocking your path. Ballista boost along the jump pad, find an enemy to hook off of, and go to this little slope. A weapon wheel dash boost later and you've scaled the invis wall. The enemy positions in this arena are completely random except the Mayker. So when you jump up, get ready to scan the arena for someone to hook off of. The amount of enemies tends to make up for the random spawns, but even if you fail it, you can kill one of the drones for a refill and try again. The harder strat would look like this. Very flashy, but strangely consistent. I say strangely because the Mayker operates very similarly to the Marauder, not only in their traffic light mechanics, but by the fact that player positioning can directly affect their behavior. Makers also have their own fun zones, but unlike Marauders, they're not limited to just opening up when you're at a certain distance. Whether you stand here, here, or here is gonna lead to different and equally consistent results. Here, let me show you. If you wish to practice this, pay attention to your positioning. It's quite lenient, but the Bloodmaker spawns too fast for any lineups, so just have a sense of where you want to be, and if you get an unfavorable behavior, try, well, being somewhere else. The best thing this guy can do is ground pound, since it keeps him in one spot. Also, this is what happens when you don't use your shield before the punch. Yeah. Lastly, there's a great backup if you fail this punch boost. All you gotta do is kill the Bloodmaker and wait for the Cybermech to spawn. He doesn't move like at all and gives a lot of height, so just get ready to stop that with a dash when you're high enough. Now that you've scaled the wall, we gotta make our way over there. If you fail on this platform, try to B-hop off of it and add a ballista, as it's pretty fast. If not, a ballista or two will do just fine. If you fail, grab the ammo down there for good measure, before breaking the tree and climbing up. In this next skip, I'll actually show you the hard one first. Pretty self-explanatory. Hook into this tree and gain enough height to go past the invis wall. Is what I would say if this imp wasn't the way it is. The moment it spawns, it goes on a walk that can only be interrupted by an ice bomb, and even then it continues walking when it thaws. This hook only gives you one chance to do it. Thankfully, the imp is super consistent and the hook itself isn't that difficult when you know what the slope you want to hit is, but it's still annoying and kind of funny. If you get the hook but not enough height, you can dash boost on here, although it's really finicky. I recommend trying to practice this dash boost so you have it ready in case of a failed hook. Alternatively, you can go the other direction and do the intended path like so. However you choose to proceed, next up, go grab this ammo over here. Personally, I like to use an SSG shot to kill the shield soldier as I fly by. If you let him be, he'll just block your path, and if you try to hug the wall, you'll find it's annoyingly sticky. Make sure not to spend your hook on this section, because you'll need it very soon. If you're on UN, by the way, throw a grenade at this group of zombies. Also, yeah, that can happen. Don't let it happen. It will be necessary to keep spawn cap from destroying your run. And now is another hook. I'll show you the hard version first. Let's tackle this one in sections. First, the hook itself. The slope you'll be using to convert your horizontal momentum into vertical is this rock right over here. Make sure that when you hook, you actively aim to hit this rock. If you have trouble starting this hook as soon as the Hell Knight spawns, you can use your Ice Bomb on him. However, make sure to aim it at him and not the floor. If you aim it at the floor, this can happen. I don't know how this came to be, but it's what we got. Secondly, the flight. We start with a hook there, move around like so, and then over to where that fight is located. It's important to do this roundabout motion because going over this part is actually considered out of bounds because this invis wall doesn't despawn. Also, try not to hit this thing too hard as it is solid and might take away your speed. Last but not least, avoiding the trigger. If you got the hook right, you should be approaching this from above, therefore the best method is to simply bump into this invis wall. Be careful though, as the wall isn't incredibly tall and going above it is also out of bounds. The trigger isn't incredibly tall either, it's about this height, so as long as you bump into the wall you should be fine. I personally find the right corner of this wall the most comfortable spot to aim for. Continuing the trend yet again, there is a backup if you got the hook and didn't get enough height to skip the trigger, in the form of some slopes on the wall. If you got barely any height, you can aim for this thing here. Weapon wheel dash boost with a ballista will get you here. Another weapon wheel dash boost plus ballista, and then another jump ballista at the very end will get you just enough height to skip the trigger. If you accidentally end up touching the trigger, check out the 100% speedrun to see how this fight is done. There's barely anything to explain as it's a very simple fight. What you see is what you get. Up next is the Pillarmen's Arena. That we don't do. Before I show you how to do it, I will say that the optimal route skips that BFG pickup over there. For the sake of simplicity, this tutorial will show you the route that does grab the BFG pickup, which is slower by about 7 to 8 seconds. A later update video will go over what we do to skip it, so that you don't have to bother with multiple routes before you finish learning the game. Firstly, I'll show you what Pillarmen's looks like. It starts with a B-hop ballista there, a quick hop with a downwards ballista, and you fly into that breakable wall before boosting your way over to the exit. That B-hop is really flashy, but it's not required at all. You can get that BFG with just 2 shots from here without any starting momentum. The reason why it's so easy is because of this huge invisible slope that makes this thing insanely forgiving, to the point where if you fail at it, you can actually just grab some extra ammo and ballista jump from the platform. When you're in this little wall pocket, all it takes to get out is another 2 shots, exactly like I showed earlier from there. Just make sure you're careful about when you dash. The universal backup for this arena is right down here in this corner, and all you need to do is go up to it, stare at this dot, move diagonally to the right, jump, and dash. You see how I get stuck on something after I jump? That's how you know it's good and you can dash out. Make sure that when you're jumping, you do it with a manual jump input and not with scroll wheel or macro. The extra height they give actually ruins this setup. Regardless of that though, it's very easy. There is a slight variation in height when you dash, but it depends on how accurate you were when staring at the dot. You don't need to be perfect to get up there, but it's good to know so that you're not surprised by it. Also, Pillarmen's is a great opportunity to take some plasma if you need the ammo. Now that you're up here, we do a little something like this. There are actually 2 wall dashes here, this one and this one. It doesn't really matter which one you go for, I recommend taking the one you're more consistent in. There are only 2 more things about this section, and that's the Speed Stealer slope right here. It's just steep enough to ruin your B-hops, but not enough to be capable of producing a ramp hop. As long as you know it's there, you should be able to jump around it. Lastly, I take diagonal paths through this huge ramp because it makes B-hops easier. There's no concrete route for this section, but I do think it's better to aim for a B-hop on the edges rather than the middle of the ramp. It's something you have to develop a feel for. Now that you've pressed the button, enter the ring and add a ballista boost for good measure. From here, I'll show you the last skip we'll go over in this episode. Here's the easier version first. Monkey bar, BFG ammo, a dash boost with ballista, and you're up. Pretty self-explanatory. The main reason why it's the easier version is that it's not dependent on any enemies, which means you don't need to hurry before they move. Like with the first room, only dash once you see the Slayer touch the slope, and you'll get it every time. The harder version, for those more confident about their movement, looks like this. From the other side, hook up ballista, and instead of a dash boost, we punch boost off the Mank. This punch is easier than it looks. Even if the Mank goes all the way over here, you'll still be able to get it as long as you aim at him correctly. If you fail this initial punch boost and fall down here, all you have to do is jump up twice and you'll be able to try again. If you're a bit slow with the B-hops here, there's always the option of ice bombing him when you grab the BFG, but the faster you are, the less you need it. Also, when you're doing this hook jump, make sure you start moving before you do a ballista boost. If you don't hold any directions and perform the ballista fast enough after the hook, you won't gain any speed from it. I have no idea why this happens, but at least I know how it works. Once you're at the bridge, reload as soon as you grab the checkpoint and it'll bring you right inside the room with a button. If you're on UN, the grenade you threw at the mecha zombies earlier should save you from spawn cap in the next arena, but we will go over that in the next episode. The first half of Holt is very intense, with a bunch of back-to-back tricks that can be a bit unforgiving when you start. But once you press this button, things start to calm down a lot more difficulty-wise. This is the part of the run where you get to take a little bit of a breather. So be sure to do that until the next episode where we tackle the final boss. Thanks for watching.